Hello everyone, and welcome to week 7 of the course. So by now, for all of you who have been kind of caught up to date to week 6, have everything painted for the skin and the eyes, this week we're going to dive into the armor and the clothing. So in this week we're going to basically be going over everything that we've done for the skin up until this point. So I'm going to start with talking about the UVs, doing a couple UV things. I'm not going to UV the entire thing because I think you guys get the point, but there's a couple features in Unfold 3D and a couple techniques that I want to talk about that's going to make your lives a lot easier when you're painting. Having said that, you guys will be getting a model that will have finished UVs, so you'll get a better understanding of what I'm talking about when you start using the model. From there, we're going to then start just applying the base color maps, and then dive into the details for the color maps, and then from there we'll dive into the spec maps and the displacement maps. So this week's going to cover basically everything for the clothing. So let's get started by looking at this model in Unfold 3D. So I have it up right here, and I'm going to load the model in. So like I said, I'm not going to UV everything, but I just want to show you a couple techniques that I use that make my life a lot easier when I'm UVing certain pieces of geometry. And this applies mainly for clothing and anything hard surface. So the first thing I want to do is let's focus on this tunic type piece here. So the way it was modeled, this collar is one mesh. Now ideally, immediately when I saw this, I wanted this collar to be metallic, and I wanted this the rest of this piece to be some kind of leather or cloth. So immediately, ideally I would have wanted this modeled separately, but sometimes you run into these hurdles where you kind of have to make do, and this is a perfect example. So what I'm going to do firstly is I'm going to cut right along an edge that I feel is appropriate for where these two materials would separate, right in that crevice, and cut that like so. And then from there, I'm just going to start doing a couple more cuts and unfold this guy. So I'm not too worried about cutting below here because obviously we're not going to see it. I just want to cut it up so I can actually unfold it. So as you can see, this program again is incredibly fast. It's excuse me, it's solving piece of geometry that you want solved, and it's incredibly good at solving very even very even on the surface. So if I were to throw this checker grid on, you can see how beautiful it unwraps and how quickly it does it. And like I said, Unfold 3D is unrivaled in terms of its solver for off-the-shelf UV packages, so I highly recommend this program. From here I'm going to make a cut at the top, and I'm going to do it really, I'm going to do it right on the edge on the inside here, because I don't necessarily want a seam to really show at this top edge. That would be important not to have that, because it just takes a little bit of time to clean up that entire edge. So if we can minimize that, that would be ideal. And I'm just going to unwrap these guys. So as it stands, obviously these do not fit in the grid, and I want to maximize my resolution. So when I run into this issue, I usually find an area that I want to cut that is not going to be noticeable. And if it is noticeable, it's going to be pretty easy to clean up. So for me, I'm just going to cut it right along the back for both pieces. It's a minimal seam, and for this project we're actually never going to see it because obviously it's just still. So however, if we do a turntable, this is a very easy cleanup. So now I can actually fit these as I want and straighten them out a bit, like so. So it'll be a bit easier to paint on. I really try to refrain from UVing anything on a diagonal because it becomes a little bit more difficult to get details very quickly in certain cases. So I always try to do vertical or horizontal. Now we move on to this collar piece. And this collar piece is very important because in my head, conceptually, I wanted to have some kind of etching on this metallic collar. And so I use a technique in my UVs that'll ensure that this is going to be a very easy process when I paint. So let's throw this checker grid on and look at this for a second. So as it stands, you can see that because I've oriented the leather pieces on a horizontal, you'll see that this grid goes on a relatively nice flow with the material. And it's not going to be such a big deal for the leather because it's going to be pretty generic. However, if we want to do anything specific, maybe do some etching into the leather, some like tooled leather, it's going to be much easier to do this on a horizontal and as straight as possible than as opposed to on a diagonal and curved. So keep that in mind when you're UVing. But more importantly, if we look at this collar, you can see that the flow is just not oriented correctly to the edge. So you get kind of a flow going on here, but then it ends up tapering all the way down to the bottom, which is going to be, as you can see, very difficult because it's a curve. So if I want to do an etching, I'm going to have to basically warp this etch into this curve here or into this curve here, and that's very time consuming and very cumbersome, and you just never get a clean result. So what I want to do is I want to make sure this top edge is perfectly straight in my UVs. So Unfold 3D has a really nice tool for that. Let's take a look at it. So we're going to grab this piece here, and we know that this edge here is the top, as you can see. So I'm going to grab that, and there's a tool here called Edge Horizontal, or Alt-H. Oh, sorry. Let's try that again. Grab this guy, and you're going to see that very quickly it conforms to a perfectly horizontal edge. And what's nice about this is now I can actually select this and just unfold it again, and it's going to unfold according to that constrained edge. And now, if we look at this edge, it's perfect. This checker grid goes perfectly along, right along the top all the way down. And we can look on the side, and this edge is perfect. And this is going to be extremely vital for us when we want to do some kind of etching or detailing. And it's a very, very easy process in this program. So let's do that to the rest of it here. So I'm going to grab that guy, constrain it, unfold, and there we go. Took literally 5 seconds to do. The inside is not so important, but I want to do it anyway, just to maintain some kind of consistency. And I'm going to constrain that, grab it, and unfold it. But what ended up happening is I grabbed too much of it right up to this edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab these edges here all the way up, and I'm going to unconstrain those with this icon here, and then resolve. And that'll solve much better for us. So you can see on the inside what's happening. We just go to 3D view, and you can see the flow line of this top border is perfect, whereas this one is oriented on a diagonal. And with a piece like this, if you have any kind of directional generic texture, you're gonna notice this, and it's gonna look very CG and very stamped down. Whereas with here, if I have any kind of directional texture, I can make sure that it flows accordingly to the geometry, and it's gonna feel much more real. So let's do the same thing to this piece. Constrain it, grab it again, unfold. And then we're going to do the same thing. Go to this edge and just shift select these few edges here. Like so. Unconstrain them. Grab it again, unfold. There we go. Very, very quick and easy. And I'm very happy with this result. So I'm not too worried about layout at this point. I just want to make sure it's all unfolded. And I'm going to grab these guys and move them on over. Now let's look at the rest here. So looking at the rest of this model, I want to do the exact same thing. Actually, let me do an incremental save. So I want to do the exact same thing to these pieces here as well, because I want details on these straps that are going to be much easier if I have them on a perfect straight horizontal or vertical line. So let's take a look at these. I'm going to grab this first one here, like so, cut that, and then cut on the inside of this guy here. Like so. I'm going to grab that, unfold, bring it on up and over, unfold, like so. Now if we look at the checker grid, you can see that it's fairly close, but it's not exactly. So I want to remedy that. By grabbing those edges and then deselecting the ones I don't want right there, and on this side as well. In fact, I just want to grab the top, like so. So I just did a control right click drag, and I just select the top edge. There we go. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom. unconstrain that and unfold. And as you can see now, it's perfectly straight. There's a little bit of warping down here, but it's not a huge deal, mainly because it gets covered up. But the important thing is that I get this perfectly straight edge, and as you can see in the UVs, this is going to be so much easier to paint on and do some kind of cool etching or detailing. So let's do that to this piece here as well. Like so. And actually it looks like we could have probably kept that selection of the bottom one as well. Looks like it doesn't overlap itself, which is cool. Unfold. Again, not super important for the underneath bits, but you never know. And there we go. Nice and clean. So let's do that to this piece here. So I want these pieces, these straps, to be leather, obviously, and then I want this to be the same gold that's going to be on that trim of the tunic. So for these guys, I'm just going to cut right down the middle. And I'm going to grab it, unfold. And unfold. And then for these edges, just going to quickly unfold these here. Doesn't look like it makes too much of a difference, so actually I'm going to leave it, because again we're not going to see those edges. Call it a day. Okay, cool. And from here I'm going to cut it right down the back again. And same process. Start with the outer piece, which is here. We're going to grab that. I'm going to deselect all of this. Let's try to see if this works as I assume it would. Yep, there we go. Select it, unfold again. And now if we take a look at with some checker grid, you can see the difference of how this flow goes all the way up and around and this one doesn't. And because I want this to be kind of a brushed gold, this is going to be almost impossible to get a brushed feel that's oriented correctly on this piece, whereas this one is going to be extremely easy because it's already oriented properly. And again, there's a bit of stretching down here, but it's not a really big deal. It's going to be pretty forgiving. We can in fact minimize it a bit more by unconstraining that section there, like so. And then we can see, let's try actually cutting these again, see if that makes a little bit of difference. It's a bit better on the top, but the bottom here, not such a big deal. So I'm actually going to weld these right back into place. There. So, happy with that. So I think you guys get the point of what I'm trying to do here. And then these pieces, this is a very strange shape. I ended up just kind of cutting it arbitrarily, just so I can get some even cuts and then solving them. So I'm not going to continue with the rest of this. I think you guys get a really good idea of how I go about doing the UVs, especially when I did the UVs for the head. I just specifically wanted to do this demo to show you these straight edge pieces and the technique for this and why I do it this way. And like I said earlier, this works really well on hard surface assets, especially when you want to get brushed metal and you want to get anything that maybe etching and writing on a curved hard surface piece, say for example this piece here. It becomes supremely easy if you lay them out correctly. And in Unfold 3D it makes it even easier to do. So I'm going to end the recording here. We're going to go back into Maya and take a look at the final UVs that I've done for this this asset here and the ones that you guys will be picking up.